Hello, it's Amy with Just a Little Ink. I'm an independent demonstrator with Stampin' Up, and today I'm here to share with you a card that I made using the additional items that were included in the March 2021 Paper Pumpkin Kit. Usually your Paper Pumpkin Kit, if you subscribe, I should go back up and tell you, Paper Pumpkin is a subscription service available through Stampin' Up, and it comes once a month or as often as you choose in your mailbox, and you decide how often it comes and how often it doesn't come. That's all up to your control. This last month's Paper Pumpkin, so usually they look like this box, but this last month, Paper Pumpkin came in a very themed mountain box. And so frequently that will happen. This past month's kit, they all come with instructions, but the last month's kit came with everything needed to make 8 mountain-themed cards. I made mine pretty much according to the instructions, with the exception of I made all of my one card birthday. The others were already set to be birthday cards. What I'm sharing with you today, so they all come with a stamp set. They come with an ink spot, varied colors. They aren't the same month to month. They shouldn't repeat throughout the year. They're all photopolymer stamps. Your first kit will come with a block that is big enough to do all of the different images. You can buy additional blocks if you so choose. The March kit also came with a set of stencils and a Stampin' sponge. This is a 1/4 of the Stampin' sponge. So I cut mine in 4ths, that's recommended. And the instructions that Stampin' Up shared in a video also share how to do that. And so the card I'm sharing with you today uses 2 of these stencils. I'm going to use the cloud stencil and the mountain stencil. And I thought that this one little image into here, to me, this looked like snow. This didn't look to me as indentions. And I used clear, so it doesn't show quite as clearly as it could. But when we do it, I'm going to use white embossing powder. I'm also going to be using the Evergreen Forest 3D embossing folder and the Stitched Nested Labels dies. These are retiring, and I'm using the largest of them. I'm going to miss this set of dies because I've used them quite a little bit. But anyway, so let's get started. I've done some things ahead of time, but I want to show you mainly how to do the snow. So you need a scratch piece of paper or a grid sheet. I'm using one of the smaller grid sheets that's meant for our Stamparatus. I've already cut out with the die the largest one of those shapes, and I'm going to begin with the clouds. So I'm going to line it up here. I'm going to come up pretty high and decide what direction I want to go here, like so. I'm going to be using Seaside Spray. It is a retired color. It was available until this last week, and it's off the list. And so if you have it, it makes a wonderful sky. I would think that Bashful Blue, excuse me, you don't have Bashful Blue, Balmy Blue would also be a good option. So you just need a light blue to do the clouds. So I start top to bottom, and then I'm offsetting as I go down. So I want to come kind of shift it down just a little. I'm not going to go as hard on this one. You kind of see the difference as you go lighter and darker. And I'm just swirling. So I'm dipping my sponge into the ink and then swirling it. And the darker you go, the deeper the clouds are. More like a storm, probably. And you want to be a little careful to get down here, not get down here. You'll see that's what's happened in this section where I'm catching a little bit of shadowing. I'm going to go one more time. We'll see if we can't grab that. Again, I'm going to try to go not as dark. And you want to hold on to your stencil. It likes to shift around. You could tape it. I know Stampin' Up! On their video had shown taping it. So then I have beautiful clouds, and I can set that stencil out of the way, close my ink pad. All of the in colors from 2019 to 2021 are retiring, and a lot of them are already unavailable. So then I'm going to put my stencil through. You want to pull it through so that I'm going to catch this edge. I want to put this mountain range in the background. And I'm going to put, I want this peak kind of up where this cloud is. I'm going to hold it here. This time I'm using some Blushing Bride. I want a pale pink, kind of look like it's off in the distance. And I'm going to push. I don't want too much color here, a little bit, come across. When I pull it off, you see I have this mountain range. And then, because I live in Colorado, you need purple mountains. I think of Purple Mountain's majesty. And so I need purple mountains. And so I want to use this peak, which is much taller mountains. And I'm going to come up, kind of almost here. I want them to almost blend together. So I'm going to come over here. Again, I want to hold it. One other little tip I've had is you can use some of your washi, which I keep a little scrap, old retired colors of washi handy, because I find it's helpful to cover up, especially toward the top of this peak, because I have a tendency to get ink in that section. So I'm going to ink up, and I'm going to swirl it in, get my purple mountains. Ooh, slide around on me. See, that's what you can have happen. We'll see how bad it was. All right, I'll pull this piece off. Okay, and then I'm going to go back to this lower range again, and I'm going to pull it over. I'm going to come up a little into that area. I can just set this aside. Don't need the purple now. Now I'm going to go to using Misty Moonlight. Again, I want to hold to make sure I'm not shifting around too much. Okay, Misty Moonlight in there. And finally, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back again, but this, I don't want it to look so much like mountains. I want it to look almost like grass. So I'm going to come in like a lower range of color here. So I angled it, and I'm going to come in with Garden Green. Again, I want to make sure to hold so it doesn't go shifting on me. You'll note that I did light to dark. And that way I don't have to clean my, my stencil in between colors. If you needed to clean your stencil in between colors, our Simply Chamois works super well. I've cut mine into fourths, and it will wipe it down really easy. It's another great tip. So I've got my mountain range. You'll notice that I have a little gap into here. What I found worked really pretty well is if I come back with my sponge that had the Misty Moonlight in it, I can just kind of come in. I don't need to do too much, but I want to blur it just a little. So then I can come in like so, and that softens it out. So that's all of my stenciling, almost. What I want to do first, before I do my mountain range, or excuse me, my snowy peaks, I want to stamp a couple trees. So I'm going to ink up my trees with my garden green. And I'm going to place them more to the left of my image than I am to the right. So I'm going to come in here, get a nice inking, like so. And I found, and we'll see how good it is on camera, if I came in and went over it again, and I could have done this in my, with my Stamparatus, that would make it easier. But photopolymer stamps are fairly easy to align again, especially a big bold image like this. Yeah, it's not so bad. So that way it's a darker tree. That's what I want. Set that out of the way. So you want it to dry before you do any embossing, but I'm going to take my line, so I'm going to line this up. You notice all of these images are meant, so I could cover this up and come in here. I'm backwards. I could come in here and cover it up, and I could shade in. I could have done the same thing, I believe, with one of my other ranges. What I want to do is I'm going to come and line up this peak. And I'm going to come back with some washi again because I don't want to put peaks on top of my trees. So I'm going to cover with washi. It's part of why I kept this piece out. And I just tear it enough to cover the places where I would end up inking up over trees. So I don't want any. I don't want any here. And I think everywhere else will be fine. So then I pulled out my craft, my Whisper White craft, and I pulled out a sponge dauber. You could use a wedge of the sponge, the stamping sponge that you got in your kit if you got one. But I'm just going to use a sponge dauber, and I'm going to swirl Whisper White, this craft ink, on top to catch those peaks. I want them to look like they're covered in snow because in Colorado, our mountains most of the year, especially the highest mountains, have snow-capped peaks. And when I saw this kit, that is what I thought of for snow-capped mountains. So this washes off really easy in the sink, just with some soap and water. So I'm going to pull that out of the way. Throw it in its spot. So then I pulled out, you notice this isn't too bad, but it dries and it ends up being just a little bit more white than I wanted it to be. I've done one in advance, but I'll show you kind of how this will go. If you keep a paintbrush around, you can brush off where it grabs it onto the wet ink. The drier that your stamping is, the less likely that you're going to grab embossing powder where you don't want it. So, kind of clean up where I don't want to have embossing powder stick, like so. And so then I would run my heat tool over that. I would also stamp my birds, and I'll do that just to show you how that went. So I pulled out my Misty Moonlight again because it was ink color I already had. The little bird stamp comes with the kit. And so then I just stamped the birds up in the sky. Again, you would heat this up. I have done that ahead of time, and then they really pop out, those snow-capped peaks. So the last thing I want to stamp is the greeting, and I'm making it a birthday card. And so I'm going to pull out my Banner's Pick-a-Punch, and I want the banner end. This is a 1/2 inch piece. It's the excess that you cut off when you do layers. Just a piece of basic white. Put it here, you notice I have my sticky here. So I'm going to go ahead and stamp my greeting. I wanted it, again, should have just left it out. I'm going to leave out my Misty Moonlight. I'm going to stamp the Happy Birthday. It was one of the stamps that came with the Paper Pumpkin kit in March. Okay. And then I'm going to cut off about 3/8 of an inch beyond the end of birthday. And I'm guessing, I could measure it, but I'm going to guess it's around here. Then because this is tiny, this is what I keep these out. These are those little tabs, Post-it note tabs. They work really well for fingers. So I'm going to put this here. I'm going to line it up. Stick it on the end, like so. I end up with my greeting. And then I'm going to just take dimensional, put it on the end. Take my Stampin' Seal, stamp and seal, and just roll it if you don't have it at the end. Sometimes it likes to not stay. All right, I'm going to line it up right in here, like so. And then I'm going to put more dimensionals to put it on the front of my card. Like so. I didn't tell you all the pieces I normally use. Normally I do that. So I used a 1/2 sheet of basic white thick, 8.5 by 5.5, scored it along the 8.5 side at 4 1/4, very simple measurements. I will have all of these measurements on my blog, justalittleink.com. I also then had a piece, a 1/4 sheet, 4 inches by 5 1/4 inches of Misty Moonlight that I ran through that Evergreen Forest 3D folder. Gives beautiful texture, but it gives me trees in the background. Again, I'm going to pull out my Stampin' Seal. A significant amount. When you have embossing, you need to have enough adhesive to hold it down. So I'm going to line up on the front. This makes for a quick card. Great way to use up some of the extra things that come with this kit. So then I'll pull off my tabs. Put it on the front, and I went a little bit off center. I'll twist this down just enough to make it straight. Here. And then for the inside, there was another stamp in the set that says, "All the best for a happy, healthy, and prosperous year." I think that'll make a great image to go on the inside of this birthday card. So, see how well I do lining anything up straight. Not too bad. And like that, I have a fairly simple, I think, beautiful card to give to a birthday recipient. It could be for a man or a woman. Thanks again for joining me. If you have not already subscribed, I would so appreciate it if you would. Also, if you'll click the little bell down below, you can receive notifications anytime that I post a new video. And if you don't already have a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, I would love to be your demonstrator. I send thank you notes for every order, and you can place an order at justalittle.ink.stampinup.net, and any order under $150, I would so appreciate if you would use the host code listed here. I'll also have it in the description of this video. Thanks again. Look forward to seeing you next time. Bye.